The skies above the herd, 1,000 hooves thunder across red soil, each step sending clouds of dust spiraling into the morning sky. The rising sun cuts through the haze like a blade of fire. And from far above, just a dark speck against the brilliant Australian dawn, a helicopter begins to descend. Its rotors whip the air into a storm as it sweeps low over the open plains. This is not a military mission. This is not an emergency rescue. This is cattle ranching on a scale only a few places on Earth can understand. Before we dive into today's jaw-dropping operation, make sure to hit subscribe so you never miss the real stories shaping global agriculture and livestock survival. The pilot banks left, scanning the land below. Scattered across thousands of acres, the herd looks like a living river. Dark shapes flowing between eucalyptus shadows, drifting through ravines in shimmering heat. Today's task is monumental. Gather more than 1,700 free-range cattle and guide them safely to a collection yard before noon. For generations, Australian ranchers struggled with herds this large, relying on horseback teams that sometimes needed days to complete a single muster. But today, the skies have changed everything. Helicopter mustering has become an icon of the Australian beef industry. One pilot with the right instincts can now do the work that once required an entire team. But that doesn't mean the job is easy. Every maneuver requires precision. Every flight demands experience. And every decision can determine whether the cattle move smoothly or erupt into chaos. As the helicopter approaches the drifting herd, the pilot dips just low enough for the cattle to feel the push of wind. A ripple passes through the animals as they shuffle, turn, and begin moving as one, guided toward a designated gathering point, invisible to anyone without an aerial view. Below, a ground crew in pickup trucks coordinates with radios, preparing to funnel the incoming wave of cattle through a narrow bottleneck of fencing. This, believe it or not, is one of the smooth days. Further south, in the massive ranches of the Northern Territory, one family manages over 80,000 cattle across an area bigger than some countries. Their property is so vast that a person could walk for days without reaching the far boundary fences. Helicopters aren't just helpful here, they're essential. One pilot says the feeling is like steering an ocean, because the herd is always shifting, always reacting, always unpredictable. But Australia isn't alone in relying on the skies to manage livestock. Across the Pacific, in the rugged American West, cattle ranchers are facing similar challenges. The United States is home to more than 28 million cattle, many raised on wide-open rangelands where traditional herding methods can no longer keep up. The terrain is unforgiving: steep mountains, dense forests, twisting canyons. A cowboy on horseback might take hours to locate a single missing cow. A helicopter, however, can find her in minutes. From an aerial perspective, the rancher gains complete control. He can spot injured animals, identify stragglers, detect broken fences, and guide entire herds from one grazing zone to another without stressing the cattle. Modern helicopters even incorporate GPS systems to track patterns, where cattle tend to wander, where predators lurk, and which areas are being overgrazed. It might seem like a luxury, but in many regions, it's the only way to maintain a profitable operation. Every cow matters, every calf matters, every minute matters. Despite the efficiency, helicopter mustering carries risks few outsiders ever consider. Strong winds slam against the rotors. Invisible pockets of hot air can send the aircraft lurching sideways. A momentary lapse of attention while flying low, especially through trees or over ridges, can be fatal. In both Australia and the American West, ranching families still honor the memories of pilots who lost their lives doing this dangerous work. Yet, without helicopters, many ranchers say their operations would collapse. With helicopters, they have found a fighting chance. But the skies aren't the only frontier transforming livestock management. Look further north, far north, into the wide steppes of Central Asia, and you will find a region where cattle herding has been a way of life for thousands of years. The landscapes here are vast, stretching to the horizon in every direction. Nomadic herders once followed ancient migration routes, letting cattle graze freely on wild grasslands that regenerated year after year. Today, those traditions still thrive, but now intertwined with modern systems that are reshaping the region into a major global beef supplier. Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Kyrgyzstan form the heart of this transformation. Their combined grasslands cover millions of hectares, offering some of the richest natural grazing terrain on Earth. The cattle that roam these lands are tough, descendants of breeds adapted to survive scorching summers, icy winters, and high-altitude winds. Their meat, renowned for its flavor and marbling, is in increasing demand in Russia, China, and much of Asia. And as their herds grow, so does the need for more efficient management. Helicopters are sometimes used to rescue cattle injured on steep pastures or stranded by sudden storms. These short aerial lifts have saved animals that would otherwise perish. Yet the real revolution in Central Asia, Siam, isn't happening above the mountains, but inside state-of-the-art cattle facilities rising across the region. Farmers now use sensors to track temperature, humidity, feed intake, weight gain, and early signs of disease. Hybrid breeds are being developed through crossbreeding local cattle with high-yield European lines. Feedlots integrate automatic feeders, smart watering systems, and climate-controlled barns. Across the region, the balance between tradition and technology is unmistakable. But even with the newest innovations, one challenge remains universal. Cattle must still be gathered, moved, monitored, protected. And whether it's on the plains of Australia, the deserts of Nevada, or the grass steppes of Kazakhstan, the core of ranching has never changed. It begins with people. It depends on animals. And increasingly, it happens from the sky. The helicopter sweeps across a stretch of land so vast it seems endless. But what the pilot sees next is a problem shared by ranchers all over the world. Cattle hiding where no one expects. Beneath acacia shadows, tucked under riverbank willows pressed against cliffsides, these animals are experts at disappearing in plain sight. To an untrained eye, the land looks empty, but a seasoned pilot knows the clues. A single flick of a tail, a shifting patch of grass, a sudden burst of movement. This is where aerial mustering proves its worth. Without a helicopter, a rancher might spend half a day searching a canyon for a handful of cattle. With one, the entire landscape becomes a map. Every ridge, every ravine, every creek bed. Nothing escapes the aerial view. But even the best pilots face challenges that no technology can erase. Strong winds roll across open plains like invisible waves. Sudden downdrafts force aircraft dangerously close to the tree line. Dust storms rise without warning, turning the horizon into a brown wall. A pilot must constantly adjust, rising, falling, shifting, banking, while keeping one eye on the herd and the other on survival. Many ranchers say the hardest part of flying isn't finding the cattle. It's moving them without pushing them into panic. Cattle are creatures of instinct. Too much noise and too sudden a maneuver, and they will scatter in every direction. So the pilot works almost like a shepherd, circling slowly, easing the herd forward, applying gentle pressure with the aircraft's presence rather than force. On the ground, ranch hands spread out in pickup trucks, closing escape routes and guiding stragglers forward. The operation becomes a synchronized dance between man, machine, and animal. The goal? Bring thousands of cattle to a single point without a single animal breaking ranks. It's a task that would be impossible on foot, nearly impossible on horseback, but from the sky, it becomes a daily reality. In recent years, another flying machine has quietly joined the cattle industry: drones. Unlike helicopters, drones require no pilot in the air, no fuel tanks to fill, and no heavy maintenance routines. They're light, inexpensive, and surprisingly effective. Ranchers program them to fly preset routes at fixed altitudes, tracing the edges of grazing zones and recording thermal signatures of cattle hidden in brush. The hum of a drone can startle a herd just enough to encourage movement without causing distress. And for monitoring health, drones equipped with high-resolution cameras are proving invaluable. A limping cow, a swollen joint, an injury from a predator, these signs are visible instantly from the air. The earlier the detection, the better the chance of saving the animal. In California, drones serve another purpose. They help ranchers track predators. Coyotes, wolves, and mountain lions can decimate herds, especially newborn calves. By scanning ridgelines and brushy slopes, drones reveal predator hotspots or active dens. Ranchers use that information to strengthen fencing, move cattle to safer areas, or coordinate with wildlife officials. It's not only about protecting cattle, it's about maintaining a delicate balance between ranching and the wild. Drones have also become essential for crop monitoring. Pastures, hayfields, and grain crops must remain healthy year-round to feed cattle through the seasons. A drone can detect early signs of pest outbreaks, water shortages, or nutrient deficiencies before they become catastrophic. With thermal sensors, ranchers see exactly which areas are too dry, too wet, or failing to grow properly. What once required days of walking or hours of driving is now accessible with a single flight path uploaded to a handheld controller. Thousands of kilometers away, on the vast grasslands of Central Asia, the story of cattle takes a different shape, but the challenges remain familiar. Here, cattle have grazed freely for centuries along ancient migration trails. Families moved with their herds, following the seasons and relying on nature's rhythm to sustain them. Today, that rhythm still beats strongly, but the demands of the modern world have transformed livestock into a major economic force. Kazakhstan alone has seen its cattle numbers rise more than 60% in the last 2 decades, driven by demand from neighboring giants like Russia and China. Across the region, hybrid cattle breeds now thrive, animals engineered for higher meat yields, greater milk production, and resistance to harsh climates. These cattle produce meat with rich marbling, bright coloration, and textures that chefs prize for quality dishes. At the bustling Karakol livestock market in Kyrgyzstan, the old traditions come alive. Buyers inspect calves one by one, running hands through their coats, checking teeth, lifting hooves, and watching their gait. A good calf can mean a good season. A sickly one can ruin a family's income. Every purchase is a test of judgment and experience. Once sold, calves begin a journey through carefully planned stages of growth. They drink their mother's milk or bottled milk for weeks, gradually shifting to hay, crushed grains, and nutrient-rich feeds. Farmers use insulated shelters during winter to protect young calves from freezing winds that sweep across the steppes. Without these shelters, many would not survive their first season. Summer brings its own rhythm. Families harvest and dry hay, a precious resource for the long, hard winter. Piles of drying grass stretch across fields, waiting to be stored in barns that may feed hundreds of cattle during months when snow blankets the land. Winter itself is a formidable season. Temperatures plummet far below freezing. Winds slice across open plains. Snow buries pastures so deep that grazing becomes impossible. Farmers rely on stored hay, grains, and supplements like sugar beets and oats to keep cattle healthy and maintain their immune systems. Cattle shelters in Central Asia are built with thick, insulated walls, simple yet effective structures designed to protect animals from the brutality of winter. Inside, cattle gather shoulder to shoulder, their warm breath rising like mist into the cold air. Despite the harsh climate, this region is becoming a global powerhouse for beef production. Why? Because natural grazing combined with movement creates meat with exceptional texture, firm yet tender, perfect for slow-cooked stews, roasts, and grilled on dishes. And as demand increases, Central Asian farmers continue blending ancient practices with modern tools. Feedlot technologies, health sensors, genetic optimization, temperature-controlled barns, and refined breeding programs. Together, these innovations have helped the region rise onto the world's meat export map. Despite the oceans and continents between them, ranchers in Australia, the United States, and Central Asia share one timeless truth. Managing cattle at this scale is never simple. It is a battle with the land, the weather, predators, disease, and sometimes even the animals themselves. A battle fought with helicopters roaring across red plains, drones buzzing over mountains, and traditions held firmly in the hands of families who have lived off the land for generations. Whether cattle are free-ranging among eucalyptus trees, grazing across American rangelands, or threading ancient nomadic routes through the steppes of Central Asia, the mission remains the same: protect the herd, feed the herd, guide the herd, improve the herd for the generations who will follow. From the air or the ground with old methods or new technology, the future of cattle ranching belongs to those willing to adapt, because the world depends on them more than most will ever realize.